What's up, family? Welcome back to another episode of Patient X Holistic Healing, where we discuss the mental, physical, and spiritual sides of healing, right? Today's video, we're going to talk about duality, why it's important to maintain duality, and why it's important to pick a side as well. I know that sounds counterintuitive, but we're going to get down to it. If you've never seen me before, my name is Professor X. I'll be your healing coach and spiritual teacher today. Without further ado, let's get right into it. So when it comes to duality, you got to understand that duality is a universal law, right? I'm going to use the law of duality and polarity interchangeably. They're the same thing. Duality just means that something has two sides or something is two. And then you have the law of polarity, which means something is split in two, right? So this side, that side, same thing. This is a universal law. If you want to look at the universal laws, it's 12 universal laws. Look it up in Google search. You can learn them. You should know that. But if you don't, look it up and you'll learn. It'll give you a lot of context on metaphysics, especially the videos that I post, right? So when it comes to duality, you got to understand that duality affects things from the greatest macrocosms of reality to the smallest things. There's always going to be two sides to things, right? You know, most common ones we use in everyday life is gender. You know, you have masculine and feminine. These are both energies that manifest in everything, right? Then you have good and evil. This is a more perspective-based one, you know. Then you have creation and destruction. That's an actual fundamental one that is ingrained into reality as well. But as beings that are living within reality, we tend to split things into two sides because we like to pick a side, right? Now, the real sauce is when you learn to balance these things, but also pick a side, right? And I know, that's, like I said, that sounds counterintuitive, but let me make it make sense for you. Now, when it comes to, you know, the way we express duality in our daily lives, like I said, we have gender, but we also have intellect, intelligence, and we also have emotions, right? And then like how that affects what the things that we do. Now, when it comes to how these things relate to each other, usually for most people, you have emotions, right? And then you have actions, right? These actions, it could be a thought or an actual physical action where you're going and doing something. You know, most people react based off of their emotions. But when we feel emotions, we often compare what we're feeling right now to something else. And that is how duality manifests into our physical life. Sometimes people can rise above that and they'll start to think thoughts and then feel certain emotions and then act off of that. You see, that's a little higher level. Some people are not capable of thinking the thought first. Most people are just responding to the different emotions that they feel. And then you can go above that and just, you know, not think at all, you know, think less, but then just feel your emotions and then intuitively know what to do. That's probably one of the highest levels of action taking when it comes to, you know, physical living. But the reason why this is important is because when it comes to emotions, emotions play a critical role. Each one of those used their emotions and felt their emotions, and it informed the way that they were going to move. If you're feeling this way, but you want to feel another way, then it's going to make you think something, which is going to make you act. Some people, like I said, they don't even think, and that's where you don't want to be. You want to either be thinking not at all, but moving intuitively, or thinking before you act. That's how you want to be. Moving straight with emotion is going to be very destructive because emotion has a lot of fire energy and you might burn down your life, right? But I say this to say, now we understand the basis for all action and judgment in the physical world. I speak on this in another video as well, more so when it comes to judgment in the mind. But, you know, the main problem with judgment is that we're always comparing this to that. And that manifests in our emotional state too. Duality plays a big part in everything that we do. Now, that was on like a sort of microcosm, right? That we're humans, we're very small. These are things that we're dealing with. On a greater scale, you know, let's break it down to society, right? Generally, within culture, there is a term of good and evil, right? What is viewed as right and wrong. And although these things are very subjective, generally, you want to adhere to these things because your consciousness, right? I'm gonna get deep right now. So sit down, right? When it comes to collective consciousness, you will tend to be around those who you share consciousness with. You might share certain, group think mentalities. You might share a frequency with these people, generally be in the same frequency range. That's why it's important to kind of adhere to social constructs like right and wrong, right? Unless you want to deadass leave the social construct and completely shift to another state of consciousness, then cool. You can completely deconstruct, your beliefs based off right and wrong. I've done that too. Everybody does that. But generally, certain things are going to stay and certain things are going to change. Like me, after my first spiritual awakening, my view of right and wrong completely flipped. It flipped on its head. But even though that's where my consciousness is, I'm still sort of within the greater bubble of the collective consciousness. There's just different tiers to it, different levels. That being said, you should know that right and wrong, good and evil, that these things are completely fictitious. You know what I'm saying? They're social constructs and you should not buy into them. What you should do is make up a construct for yourself of what you believe is right and wrong. That's how you move throughout life. And, you know, it can be a very selfish road if you don't know how to stay balanced. But ultimately, that's the path that you want to take. You want to be able to build your own morals and stand on them. The balance comes into play when you are dealing with other people and you might have to sacrifice your own not morals, but sacrifice the things that you would normally do to do something else for the love of somebody else, right? That's a very common thing when you get into relationships. You might have to sacrifice this to I don't want to say please, but to make sure that somebody else stays okay. And there's different tiers to that too. You got the people pleasing, then you got the doing something out of love, and you got the doing something out of sacrifice. That's a whole video on its own. But generally, you want to be able to do that. You want that in your bag. You want to be able to move and shake and not only be one way. And that's where the duality comes into play. You want to be able to do both things, both sides, right? Now, when it comes to good and evil, generally, my philosophy is you should be able to do what is considered good and evil. You want to be able to do both, right? You want to have your own balance. Now, some people, they're going to tell you, oh, you need to be super good in life. You need to be, what is it? I'll put the graph right here, but they have like a D&D chart of morality, right? Now that I'm thinking about it, I made this video already, but I lost it. I used this chart in another video, but we'll just break it down right here, right? You have the chaotic good or whatever. It's foggy on my memory right now, so it might be called something else on the chart. But you have the super, super good and then the super, super bad and everything in between, right? Now, generally, you don't want to touch the super polarizing sides of both sides. You don't want to be super, super good or super, super bad. You want to avoid those at all costs and avoid the corners. But generally, what you want to be is neutral good or neutral bad, right? But you don't want to be just one. You want to be able to flip-flop between all of them, right? Now, this is not in terms of truth. This is not doing something that's, oh, truly bad, truly good. You know, this is in terms of the social construct. Generally, something might be good for me, but it might be bad for somebody else. And you have to be okay with that in life. If you're always people-pleasing and shit, you're going to be stepped on throughout your whole life. Sometimes you got to call back that power, right? For example, it's people that truly, truly, truly do not like the fact that I get on here and I preach truth and that I have a good head on my shoulders. It's people who hate that. They want to do away with all people like me. I don't give a fuck. What if I let that stop me, bro? What if I did not come on here and put on game? What if I did not come on here and build a community of like-minded individuals who can perpetuate higher thinking? The world will be cooked. If there was nobody like me on YouTube, on Instagram, on all of these places that are helping reawaken consciousness within humanity, the world will be cooked. So I can't care what other people think about me. I can't care even if some people have good intentions. You know, some people don't like me or what I'm doing because they're truly bad people and, you know, they just want to do away with this. Some people actually have good intentions though. Some people, they might think whatever I'm doing goes against their God or their religion and they want to do away with it because they feel like it's wrong and it's indoctrinating people. What if I let that stop me? Like, I would be nowhere. So that's why you want to be able to go between both sides, you know, doing something that's neutrally good and neutrally bad. To you, right, it should always either be neutral or good. You know what I'm saying? Generally good. You should always feel like you're doing the good thing, the right thing for yourself. But in terms of other people and how you relate to other people, not everybody's going to see everything you do as good. And that's okay. Maintaining a solid balance of good and evil, right and wrong, you know, masculine and feminine, these things will serve you very well in life, especially the masculine and feminine. You want to balance your divine feminine and divine masculine in every situation. You want to, sometimes you have to show up as a masculine. Sometimes you have to be softer and show up as a woman and attract. Sometimes as a man, you got to, you know, build and, you know, project. You got to do all of these things and you got to know how to do them well, right? This is a part of spiritual awakening, the unification of the soul. Sometimes you have to do right and sometimes you have to do wrong. It's times in my life where I would not have survived if I only did the things that other people thought were good. It's people out there, you know, they're trying to survive. They have to eat out the trash can to survive. That's considered bad to most people. But what if that person died, right? they would have had no chance at making a better life for themselves in the future. There's people right now who are multimillionaires who used to steal out the store and eat out the trash because they were just down bad. They had no other options. People who, I just heard a story today about a boy who was in foster care his whole life. Foster parents abused him. You know what I'm saying? They used all of the foster money, because foster care, they give you money so that you can provide for the kids. You know, they used all the foster money and buy drinking, drugs and shit and partied. Meanwhile, the kids were starving, no food in the fridge. Bro said like he had to go eat out the trash and all of these things. Now bro is a millionaire off trading stocks. What if he would have let other people's perceptions of him get to him? That, oh, you know, eating out the trash or stealing out the store is bad. I can't do this. And then he just died. He would have never had a chance to change his life. And that's the point that I'm making. If you always do only one thing, you will never serve yourself in the highest light, right? Some people, they only do chaotically evil stuff, where they only do selfish things, and that stops them from providing for their community. Once you stop providing from the community, then you start to drain the community. You become a hindrance, and the community will naturally remove you. You know what I'm saying? You will be ejected from the environment, because the environment has to stabilize itself. It has a spirit. I have a whole video about that. Maybe I'll link it right here. Maybe it's not out yet. I don't know. We'll see. But the point that I'm trying to make is, like, you cannot be too good and you cannot be too bad. At the end of the day, good and bad are just caricatures. Right now, what I mean by caricature is it's kind of like a poster child. It's a fictitious entity, right? This is why we fantasize these things. They're not real. You know what I'm saying? When we talk about superheroes and then super villains, why do they have to be super? You know what I'm saying? Why do nobody understands the psychology of comics and superheroes, but I really do. When it comes to, you know, let's say Superman, that's the great man everybody wants to be. He's good at everything. Nothing is wrong with him, right? He wins at everything. That's a caricature. It's fake. It doesn't exist. He's perfect. It doesn't exist. But it feeds the insecurities of certain people. And that's why they feel like Superman is their favorite superhero. They feel seen when Superman is on the screen or when Superman is on the comic book. You know what I'm saying? And it's similar with super villains. Super villains don't really exist. Super villains, I'm gonna say, don't really exist, although we do have some pretty bad people in this world. I'm not gonna lie, but I wouldn't say that a super villain really existed. A super villain is somebody who only does evil shit just to do evil shit, like Joker. But even then, with like somebody like Joker, like that nigga is severely mentally ill. So it's like, can we even call bro a villain for real? Nah, I ain't gonna lie, he did some devious shit. I fucked the mental illness. But my point by saying all of these things is that they're fake. You know, when you walk down the street, you'll rarely see a super villain type of person. Maybe a sociopath, somebody who is not good socially. Maybe a psychopath, somebody who is mentally ill. But you will not see a super villain who just does it for the love of the game. And same with super good people. The same people who be talking about, oh, you know, don't cut in line, or, you know, pay your taxes on time. Like, these people be doing crazy shit, probably be beating on their wife and, you know, I'm not even gonna get into all the things that people do behind the scenes under the covers. But my point by saying this is that good and bad does not even exist at the end of the day. That's why you have to unite both of them and then be whoever you need to be in a situation to get where you want to be, right? But remember, you can only do what you need to do to get where you want to be if you have a good moral foundation. If you don't have a good moral foundation, you're cooked, because then you're just going to start to do whatever you need to do to get ahead, and that's not okay. You see that with a lot of celebrities. You know, they might have sacrificed certain things, and to be honest, it's not always the soul. Not everybody got to sacrifice their soul. Some people, they push a certain agenda for certain money that hurts their community or hurts other communities, and they don't even really agree with the message, but, you know, that's just what they do to get ahead. You feel me? That's a whole nother video in itself, but you know, that's where it goes when you just start to do whatever you need to do to get ahead, and you don't want to be there. That's desperate energy. At all times, you want to stay in your power, and you stay in your power by being autonomous. Okay, in this situation, I'm gonna choose to do good. In this situation, okay, I'm gonna choose to be more selfish. Okay, in this situation, I'm gonna just be neutral. You know, that's where you want to be. So next time, you know, the world around you is being super devious, you know, maybe hold your chest up and decide to do the right thing. Maybe next time, you know, people are slacking and you see people being entitled and not really going about it, you want to take food out their mouth just to show them like, hey, nigga, you need to be on your shit. I know that one happens a lot at the workplace. Some people, they think that they're, you know, supposed to get promotions or they're supposed to get this and that special treatment. Nah, bro, I've taken promotions from people a few times and they hated that. They didn't like me for that. So it's other people that I know. And that's how you got to move in life. Sometimes you got to take food out somebody's mouth, and that's okay. Master duality, master the art of neutrality, not really caring about what happens if it goes either way, but still acting on one side. Like, even though a lot of times I'm neutral in life, I still act on one side. You feel me? But that's pretty much it for this video. Maybe I'll do a part 2 telling you people like exactly how to move, especially when it comes to neutrality, but still acting in the world, because that's like a big spiritual discipline. A lot of people, they struggle with that. After they ascend or wake up, they feel like, damn, like I don't really care about anything, but I feel like, you know, I have to do something. Because you do. You should always be doing shit. That's the point. That's why we're here. You feel me? That's why we manifest into the physical plane. But at the end of the day, our spirits are in tune. We're balanced. But that's pretty much it for this video. Like I said, if you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe for your boy. That's how we boost the community, and spread the videos to people who like this type of content. If you have anything to add to the conversation, please leave it down in the comments below. And with that being said, my name is Professor X. I want to thank y'all for watching the Patient X Holistic Healing, and I'm going to catch y'all in the next one. Peace.